Makes sense. I call to order the regular meeting. Oh, I thought it was. Yeah, okay. Turns out.
Checked everybody but you, right?
Yeah. I call to order the regular meeting of the Township of Morris Planning Board for May 5th, 2025.
Retro version.
It's going to be a long night.
The legal notice required in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act has been satisfied, and a statement certifying same will be executed. Could you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Sonia, could you call the roll?
Mr. Alonso.
Here.
Ms. Van Order.
Here.
Mr. Flowers.
Here.
Mr. Rabbit.
Here.
Ms. Murphy.
Yes.
Mr. Benoit.
Here.
Mr. Quillen.
Here.
Mr. Revere.
Here.
Mr. Bott.
Here.
Ms. Daly. Here. Mr. Solisky.
Here.
Mr. Bush.
Here.
And I, Sonia Santiago.
Okay, our first order of business is we have a resolution appointing our new planning board engineer, Joe Gooch, who was rejoining us, replacing, trying to replace, I'll say, Jim Slater. We're glad to have him. So we have a resolution for services for engineering consult for Joe and the firm to be our board engineer. Any comment, questions?
I'll move that.
We have a
Second.
second. Any discussion? I think this is a roll call as it's a resolution. So can you call the roll, Sonia?
Mr. Alonso.
Yes.
Ms. Van Order.
Yes.
Mr. Flowers.
Yes.
Mr. Rabbit.
Yes, you're welcome, Joe.
Ms. Murphy.
Yes.
Mr. Benoit.
Yes.
Mr. Quillen.
Yes.
Mr. Revere.
Yes.
Mr. Bott.
Yes. So, welcome, Joe. Glad to have you. Look
Yeah.
forward to working with you. Oops. Next on the agenda is the consideration for approval of the minutes from our January 13th meeting. Were there any comments, corrections to the minutes?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes as drafted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I have minutes approved. Thank you, Sonia, once again for putting those together. Appreciate that. Okay, then moving on to the first of we have resolution, first of all, from the last meeting. Mr. Skessi, you want
It wasn't me, I swear.
to?
Hello?
Nope, it's not me.
This is, I think it's, is this picking me up? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, we're good. All right, board members. So this was the application 257 Mount Kimball LLC. This was, if you'll recall, property located at Lot 2 within Block 51 or 5401, also known as 257 Mount Kimball Avenue. Very apt named property and applicant here. They were seeking approval to develop 4 single-family residential lots and create 2 lots that would be open space for the township. There were a number of bulk variances, mostly for retaining wall height, all for retaining wall heights, and then 3 design waivers for steep slope disturbance. I believe it was an 8-to-1 decision, if I'm recalling correctly. Let me just go back to the notes. This should be the beginning of the decision section. Apologies.
It was.
One more page, my apologies.
It's not.
Yep, it was an 8-to-1 vote. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. If anyone has any questions or revisions, please let me know.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
Yes.
One of the things I commented on during the hearing is that there were no architectural drawings, and this is an historic district. And I don't remember exactly what the response was, but it wasn't memorialized in this resolution. And further, when I left here, I thought, well, it's an historic district. And if we're going to leave the historic designs the architectural designs in historic district to whomever in the future, I feel like our board's giving up its authority, giving up its power. I kind of want to know how the rest of the board members feel about it, because it's our master plan, and we've designated that as historic district. We're the only board with authority to grant yay or nay on the design standards, because the other members of the staff or the historic commission don't have the authority to require one way or another. And it seemed to me afterwards that I was perfectly fine with all the variances. But it seemed to me that there should have been a request at least to see the proposed architectural drawings. The proposed architectural drawings in the old application, when there were 11 units and it was reduced, I have a copy of those. They're very contemporary. There's nothing historic about them. They were nice, but they were contemporary drawings. And so it just seems to me that if it's our master plan and we've designated that as historic district, and it's something that we want to cherish as part of our history for the township, that perhaps we should not have given up that component of the application and asked them to come back with some design, architectural design that at least attempts to be sensitive to the historic district that's in a master plan. So I was wondering if any other board members had any thoughts on that or concerns, because it's not in the minutes at all. And I did discuss it, and then it just fell by the wayside. It just didn't seem right to me.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think that the next stage is where you would see architectural design. What we approved was not a specific site plan for building homes, so it wasn't something that we were talking about or voting on in that stage. But when they do come in for development on those sites, you will see
What they look like.
renderings of the homes, and that through our TCC, we could make sure they understand the historic nature of the area and expectations on the part of the board. So I think I'm not disagreeing with your comment. I just think that it may be a little premature in terms of the process.
I think that was part of the discussion, now that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
But it's not going to come before us.
No.
It's going to go before the staff or the historic committee. So
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question for our legal counsel. So we've approved the application. Do we have the ability to retread?
I believe so, Mr. Alesso, and I did review the tape of this hearing, and I don't recall there being any mention of a specific condition requiring
There was no condition.
Yeah, there
compliance with that.
it
Exactly.
was it's in the ordinance. It was
Right.
acknowledged that it's in the ordinance.
I would say if the ordinance requires that these homes have to meet some kind of specific architectural standards, I don't believe they could waive that unless they sought a variance or some other form of relief.
So shouldn't that be the zoning officer that's the backstop for that? So when they put in their application for a building permit,
Mhm.
the zoning officer, before he grants permission for the zoning piece of that, he would check to see that it meets an architectural standard
If
that the
those,
planner and maybe the engineer have collectively put together?
yeah, if those standards are in the ordinance, then yeah, I would, presumably.
Yeah, I think that's where your protection.
I'm
is
sorry,
at.
there are two issues here. One is the standards in the ordinance for architectural design. The other is the historic component. And so we really have no enforcement powers on this application over either one of those.
Well, but you're relying on our zoning officer to enforce that
Well,
power.
is the zoning officer, is I asking too much of the zoning officer? And if what goes in isn't historic or doesn't really meet some architectural standards that was in the ordinance, is there any,
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I don't, I mean, you can't have history in a brand new building. It could only be an architectural standard at that point. There is no history. There's no historic value because there's nothing, they're not, when we look at Restoration Hardware, there's a historic building And we've asked them to mimic some of that history in their redesign, mimic some of that history in the new buildings. There's no buildings here. So the only thing they're going to rely on is the general area, and those are where the architectural standards would kick in my opinion. I'm not trying to disagree with you, but
Yeah, I don't know.
I think we're
because
stretching a stretch
there's
that
a
we don't need
difference
to stretch.
between, no, I appreciate
Especially with
that.
bi-levels across the street. I mean, there's no
Right.
history across
Yeah.
the street, Ed.
Not at all.
It's
Yeah.
not a neighborhood that's a historic, somebody designated a historic,
Right.
but in reality,
The homes
Then maybe
are
we
not.
should take away the designation.
well, maybe that's for the master plan review and
Okay.
down the road.
I just wanted to express my concern there because going forward, if there's a historic district, it's not clear who enforces any kind of historic sympathetic design or architectural design. We don't have an architect on staff to do that. So, but I want to throw out, because if nobody else has a concern about it, I'm not going to worry about it. But I just wanted to express my concern.
I have a concern about it, but I think it's limited what we can do at this point. I mean,
Right.
the resolution has passed, the approval was made, but we could look at what the ordinance says and we could see what specifically is required in the ordinance, and we could, as an advisory matter, we could ask the township staff to put procedures in place, perhaps consulting with the Historic Preservation Commission about what they think. But again, it would be advisory on their part.
Right, because again, it was just an application for
Right.
subdivision. We approved the lots.
Right,
that they-
not
Right.
Without any
We
specific.
didn't approve
We
it.
don't even
after
know
that,
what they
right.
were.
So I would guess, I guess it's up to the zoning officer or the zoning board if they seek any variances individually when they decide to develop the lots. Then maybe there's, then you on the
But
Board of
only
Adjustment has some say there, but at this point, or even down the road, a subdivision in a historical district, can we attach conditions on that? I don't know. It's a good question.
I just say in other towns, if a new building is going in that's not sort of a designated historic site, it could still go to the Historic Preservation Commission for review so that there's some level of oversight as to what's going in to make sure it's sympathetic. My reading of the existing ordinance doesn't permit it. It's basically the Historic Preservation Commission only has purview over the actual contributing historic sites. So that would be something that would have to be sort of a policy issue, going forward. If you wanted to include sort of non-contributing, this would be sort of non-contributing buildings in a historic district because they're brand new. And, do you want to allow the ability to give oversight to the Historic Preservation Commission for building permits in that district on new construction?
I would want to at least give them an advisory role,
No.
but I'm not sure that our ordinance permits that now. It sounds like it doesn't.
I don't think it does.
It doesn't,
Okay.
yeah.
In
Something
a
that-
quick, trying to skim, I didn't see anything either. Liz is looking up as well, so.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you. I wanted to have this
Something they-
discussion.
They wanted this.
I'm glad that we did.
We accept this resolution.
I'll second.
So, Joe, I have a couple of more comments on this. Mine are much more trivial than Mr. Benoit's. So, one was the roll call hasn't been put in on page 23. It doesn't show how the votes were made.
It's on the agenda.
Okay, it does say that the vote was 8-1. I was trying to remember who the no vote was. I think
It's
I
on
know.
the agenda, it's listed on the agenda.
Okay.
Mr. Barrett, Mr. Bennett? I'm sorry.
Benoit.
Bill Barrett.
Bill
Mr. Barrett, yeah.
I think he was the only no vote.
Um, Then on page 6, I hope not too many people hate me for this. On page 6, item number 6, the language says the applicant's proposal proscribes for the construction of a multitude of retaining walls. I don't think proscribes is the right word. Proscribes means forbids. I think it should say the applicant's proposal calls for the construction of a multitude of retaining walls. And then in item number 7 on the same page, there's the same language.
Certainly make that
Yeah.
Great. On page 8, near the bottom, it names the roadway, calls it Prudence Court. I don't think that's right. I think I don't remember what the name of this road
Way, Prudent
was
Way,
proposed to be.
Prudent Way,
What is that?
Prudent Way,
Prudent Way?
prudent.
Prudent way.
You remember?
Prudent spelled just like this, like the word?
No, it's not prudent.
No.
Prudence.
It's not, right?
Yes, yeah, no, please.
So, didn't expect to speak tonight, but thank you. Was Prudence Way, and that was an HPC recommendation.
Oh, wow.
Prudence Way.
No, to change it.
Prudence.
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 It was a recommendation of your historic preservation group. I don't remember the history of it, but it
It's,
does.
well, a
link back to
Prudence
some-
with a C, because that was Prudent Town. Prudent was without,
It's the name of the historic district.
Prudent.
Yeah.
Prudent Way.
yeah,
No, I don't think so.
Prudden,
I
I
could-
believe.
If you all leave a placeholder there, I'll
Yeah.
check and get back to Mr. Warner's
Okay.
office.
I'll go back and double.
Okay,
Yeah.
that'd be great. I'm sensitive to this because for years I've been on the street naming subcommittee, but I've never named any
Never.
streets.
One day there'll be a quiz.
I did have that
That's
question,
That's the
but
real
when
issue, right? You wanted to name it.
Yeah, I confess it. Okay, and then my final one is on page 13, the very first line. This is continued, the sentence is continued from the page before. It says, sorry, page 12, excuse me. It says improvement in light of the regarding that would be necessary to construct same. I have no idea what that is. Something was wrong there.
Improvements. It should be improvements. in light
In light of what?
of regrading, that's what it should be.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, right, okay, that makes sense.
No, maybe I should have been. All right, that was it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
sure.
Yeah.
In light of George correcting the residential, I would like to make a motion that we have accept George's changes and pass this resolution.
Like second.
We have the roll call?
Mr. Alessio,
Yes.
Mr. Flowers,
Yes.
Mr. Rabbit,
Yes.
Ms. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Benoit,
Yes.
Mr. Quillen,
Yes.
Mr. Riglia,
Yes.
Mr. Pai.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. Okay, moving on to public hearings. We have two applications tonight. First one being PB 0725. Would you introduce that for us, Tony?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is PB 07-25 Red Bull Arena Inc. for an amended site plan with variance. This is block 9101, lots 4 and 5, 101-103 Columbia Road in the Oil 40 CBD zone. Applicant proposes the installation of a camera and antenna system around the field.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll just-
Yes.
yeah, for the record, I'll just point out, I did review the applicant's notice here for tonight's hearing. I do deem it to be sufficient in terms of both its content and timeliness of service. It was sent by certified mail to the owners of property within 200 feet of the subject property on April 21st of this year, and then also published in the Daily Record on April 23rd, 2025, both more than 10 days in advance of tonight's hearing. So thus, in my legal opinion, the board has the jurisdiction here to decide the case.
Okay.
I'll turn it over to applicant's counsel if he wants to give an intro.
Nick Rassiopi.
Just
from
speak into the mic,
Riker
Nick.
Nick Rassiopi from Riker Danzig, representing tonight the applicant, Red Bull Arena, Inc. So we're back. And I think it's like the Hotel California. You can come, but you may never leave. But tonight, we're excited to be back because tonight, we are here to put the final touches
Are you
on this
sure?
really great project. We believe we are here to put the final touches on this. And it's been a really long and rewarding journey for me and for my clients. We started with, even before this, planning, but with a public outreach and public meeting at the Westin, November 2021. And we did everything you could do in a land use application. We amended the GDP. We amended the zoning. We had many, many meetings to get the initial preliminary and final site plan, and then we amended that site plan. And tonight, we are here really to put the final piece of this puzzle together, and that is the technology. And another amended site plan. But the technology we're talking about, and you'll hear more about this, is cameras and antennas. Cameras to record the players on the fields for game planning, player development, and many other things. Antennas to collect the players' biometric data. This is not something they used when I played sports, but apparently this is what they use now. Now, this technology is really critical and essential to the purpose, the use, and the performance of the practice facility operation. You can obviously, this day and age, you cannot have a state-of-the-art, world-class practice facility like the one we are currently building without this technology. So I'm not going to explain it, and without further delay, I'm going to introduce our professionals to describe for you the specific details, where they're going, what they do, et cetera. Rich Barrington, our engineer from WSP, will describe really the details of our application. Should there be any operational questions that Rich, for some reason, can't answer, John Amorosa, who's been project manager from day one, is here as the Red Bulls project consultant to answer any questions. And we also have the esteemed Michael Tobia. So if there is any planning questions at all, Michael is here to answer those. We'll only call them if the board has questions about those areas. So, Rich, why don't we get you sworn in and get started?
You want to swear them all in, just so we don't
Yeah,
have to
sure.
stop, and our
Sure.
board professionals also?
At least you'll get sworn in, Michael.
Yep,
even
to
if
start.
you're-
All right, if you, three of you, plus the two board professionals, could please raise your right hands. You're all doing that. Do you all swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you all so much. Back to you, Counselor.
Okay. Rich, would you give the board the benefit of your experience and your credentials and whether or not you've been accepted by this board as an expert in the past?
My name is Richard Barrington. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey and in New York. As far as this application, I've also been accepted as an expert. I provided the testimony for the original approval in 2023. I also provided the testimony for the First Amendment in 2024, and have provided a testimony to other boards and other counties in the state of New Jersey.
We ask that he be accepted as.
We will accept. Yeah,
Thank
please proceed.
Could I just get Mr. Barrington's, his firm and his business address, please?
WSP USA Inc., and we're located at 350 Mount Kemble Avenue, Morristown, New Jersey.
Thank you. Your license is current and good standing?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Please proceed.
Rich, would you give the board a description of our application tonight?
Yes, thanks, Nick. So building off of what Nick said, we're here today to talk about essentially the data analytics player tracking system. As Nick mentioned, this is something that all pro sports teams are doing: football, baseball, soccer. This is akin to what you've probably seen on any NFL game, where they're talking about yards after catch. They're talking about acceleration, similar to what you see on any baseball game when you hear terms like exit velocity, spin rate. So this is essentially a player tracking data analytics system for our site. Now, what's special about this site is the Red Bulls they do have a team in place who does data analytics. They have a team in place who does this for their academy, for their team currently now at Red Bull Arena. They do this currently at the existing facility. The system that they're working with now is really driven by their global soccer group. So essentially, the system we're going to talk about tonight is an improvement of what's in place. It's the benefit of lessons learned from things at the arena, from things at the current training facility, and from lessons learned from overall at other locations in Germany and other locations overseas. So what I wanted to do was talk about, in terms of the presentation, I broke it into 3 pieces. I wanted to give you a general system overview to the components, a little bit about that. Then I'll talk about the specific design that we have for our site. And lastly, I'll wrap it up to try to tie together how everything we talked about fits within the zoning and the variances that we're requesting tonight. So coming back, what is data analytics? Essentially, it's a professional sports development tool used for collection of vast amounts of data used to improve player performance, team performance, player identification, a lot of purposes. It's collecting data, and there is a team that processes this data, and they're looking for certain things, and they're finding a lot of neat ways to use it. The system we're going to talk about tonight has 2 components. As Mr. Rasiopi mentioned, there is a camera system. So there are cameras, both fixed view cameras, pan tilt zoom cameras, used for a variety of purposes. The second piece of the player tracking system is essentially what we're going to call an anchor system. Nick called it antenna anchor. It's essentially a GPS system that tracks different player biometrics. Each player wears within a small vest a sensor that then speaks via GPS technology to these various antennae located around the perimeter of the site. Everything from our cameras, everything from our, I'll call them anchors, is essentially hardwired back to the main principal building. So regarding the cameras, let me share a screen and pull up the first exhibit.
And Rich, is this a plan that was submitted, or was this?
This will be a new exhibit.
Okay, so why don't you tell us, you prepared it and describe it so that we could get it marked.
Okay, is it up?
There you go.
There we go.
Okay.
So briefly describe this exhibit, whether you prepared it, what your intent is.
So calling this Exhibit A1, it's essentially the overall site plan with the various cameras and anchors shown on the site. I've used different colors to represent different things, which I'll talk through, different shapes to represent different things. One other note, the circles and the squares shown here are not to scale. So I'll talk about the exact sizes of things as we go through. Okay.
Is that dated today, or is that a different date on it?
There's no date on it. The file is dated today. So. Okay. Okay, so starting with the cameras, okay? And cameras are going to be used, as I said, there'll be both wide-angle panoramic cameras for tracking on the field, looking at individuals, formations. There'll also be pan-tilt zoom cameras, which are really for focusing on individual players, soccer balls, individual things that can zoom in and out. The typical camera, what we've shown, and we did put it in the plan set, the largest camera we have is roughly 14 inches high with a 9-inch diameter. All cameras are proposed on camera poles. All the camera poles are 46 feet high. There will be nothing higher than 46 feet. There will be in most cases, multiple cameras on a pole. There are different configurations too, as I'll talk about. Some poles will have more cameras than others just because of how they're located. I'll talk about that when we go through a typical field. An anchor system, okay? An anchor system is the antennas, what Nick called them. Essentially, these are small GPS boxes, roughly 6 inches by 9 inches. These will be installed along the perimeter. They'll be installed 16 feet high. In some cases, they'll be installed on new poles. In most cases, they'll be installed on existing netting posts, existing buildings, and in some cases, they'll be installed on, we'll call them extensions on top of an existing fence. We have 10-foot fencing throughout the perimeter of the site. So in some cases where we don't have a high post, there would be a 6-foot fence post extension in order to get the anchor up to the proper height. Really, as we mentioned, the data from the anchors is used to assess player fitness and complement the 3D video. Okay. Supporting infrastructure. Okay, as I mentioned before, the system, besides the cameras, the anchors, requires infrastructure. We're talking new poles, either 46 foot high or 16 foot high, depending on the situation and how they're used. Additionally, everything is going to be hardwired, so there will be underground communications duct bank, communications handholds, everything that ties that all back to building A. Last thing, there will be, I'll say, small communications boxes throughout on poles to facilitate that infrastructure being hardwired back to the building. Okay, so working off the legend, and looking at the zoom in on the legend. So primarily the intent here was that circles are the anchors, okay? Anywhere you see a yellow circle, it's an anchor being mounted to an existing net post, an existing light pole, an existing fence.
And you're using anchor and antenna
Interchangeably, correct.
Okay.
Triangle, yellow triangle is essentially, again, because it's yellow, it's an anchor that's on an existing building that's being constructed. The red is new. So where you see a red circle, that is a new 16-foot pole. Okay. Regards to cameras, they are the rectangles. So essentially the yellow rectangle is camera locations on an existing athletic light pole. That's really one location over at Field 5, which I'll talk about. The pink rectangles are essentially new 46-foot poles. Okay. And the last symbol on here is essentially a green circle, which is the areas where we identified a setback variance, which I'll talk a little bit more about. Coverage. Okay, so essentially where are these systems installed? So essentially the full player tracking system, which is cameras, anchors, is installed on fields 1, 2, 3, 4, which is essentially the bottom 4 fields. It's also installed on fields 6, 7, and 8. Okay, 8 being the competition pitch that we spoke about before. Field 5 is a special case. Field 5 is what we would term a limited tracking system, where only 4 camera locations mounted specifically to the athletic lighting posts. So for Field 5, there are no new poles in or at Field 5 itself. There's no system for Field 7A. Field 7A was essentially the field north of Field 7, which was the half field, but there's no player tracking system there. A few notes about how this operates. Essentially, we are looking to operate the system for training sessions. We're looking to operate the system also on games. So any type of game on Field 8, the system would be turned on. The system is functional day or night, but it does not require any additional lighting. Essentially, it's whatever daylight conditions are there, whatever the lights are on for practice at night, then it may be operational for that. A few other notes about this. The cameras themselves, they will record. but the cameras are essentially visible and the data from them is visible to the data analytics team only. And it does have the option to essentially alter out or black out areas that, because it is smart video, you can block out, or I think the term that the technical experts used was pixelate. So if there's an area you don't want to see in the background, that can be pixelated out so that it's only recording the on-field activity.
It will be pixelated.
It will be pixelated out, correct. Okay, that's general system. So moving into the specific system and talking about how the poles are laid out, how the anchors are laid out. If I use, for example, I'll start. And use essentially field 2 as an example. In terms of camera poles, essentially each field has 4 camera poles. 2 at the midfield locations looking in, 2 behind goal looking in as well. So essentially you're getting all of field 2 from these 4 locations, the 2 midfields and the 2 end lines. There would be multiple cameras on midline, possibly goal line, in order to get coverage of the whole field. Field 1, also of note, Field 1 has an extra pole in order to get the coverage provided on the goalie pitch over in this area. The poles themselves, they're 46-foot poles. Right now, we're looking at round tapered poles extending up to 46 feet. There would be a small bracket at the top of the pole to allow the cameras to mount to those. The locations, for the most part, the end line locations have all been brought onto the interior of the perimeter fence. Just a reminder to everybody, the perimeter, the southern perimeter of fields 1, 2, 3, 4, pretty much the entire facility is essentially a 10-foot chain link fence, which has netting that goes up to an elevation of 30 feet above the fields. So the line here, pretty much the line behind these fields, is a 30-foot high line, a perimeter of netting and fence. And the posts, the camera poles of what we talked about doing was bringing them interior to the site. That's how the camera works out typically per field. In terms of the anchors, and again, red being new poles, yellow being anchored onto existing structures. Those are all installed at 16-foot height. So in this case, you can see an array of red dots along the perimeter. The spacing of the anchors, the height of the anchors is all essentially manufacturer recommended from lessons learned. Certainly with antennas and with this type of thing, the more you have, the better feed you get, the better the system works. So the spacing of these, the height of these is based on lessons learned at other facilities. In this case, you can see essentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 16-foot poles. Just a reminder to everybody too that the length of the soccer fields themselves are from end line to end line are roughly 360 feet. So while on this picture it looks like a lot of dots, in reality it's a really big site, and 16-foot poles spaced at 40 to 60 feet really isn't that cluttered out there. But it is necessary to get the coverage that's needed for the facility. As we mentioned before, I'll go back to Field 5 because Field 5 was a special case, limited camera. The athletic lighting poles, just a reminder here, are 80-foot high. So the cameras installed on these poles would again be roughly 46. Again, this Field 5 is a little bit challenging because there is going to be different types of play there. As you can see from the way this one is laid out, there could be up 4 small size fields. The size of the field is also designed for 2 9v9 fields, and it also can be striped to be an 11v11 field, just like Field 6. So while we do have camera coverage there, we're not doing the same type of things that we're doing on the other fields, but it does give us some flexibility for player analytics for some of the younger teams and folks that are using those fields.
And refresh my memory, the yellow rectangles are on existing
Correct.
light poles, and the pink ones are the
New
46
poles.
foot. Okay.
Total, there's 25 new camera poles. There's also 4 locations on the existing light poles. In terms of the anchor system, there's 36 new anchor poles, but there are 44, I'll say, anchor locations that are on existing, either on existing light poles. This is a location here near Field 8 and 7 where we're able to mount these because we do have pedestrian street lighting there, so those are able to be mounted there. So even with the anchor poles, the majority of those are being mounted on existing infrastructure. I mentioned the anchors, the spacing for them. The spacing is manufacturer designed based on lessons learned. So moving into the zoning piece of the whole thing. So,
Before you get there, maybe you're going to speak about it later, about the diameter of like a 16-foot pole.
right, so what we did is we did add into the plan package, essentially a 16-foot pole is roughly 4-inch diameter. We're looking for those to be painted black, similar to the other net posts on site. The 46-foot poles are going to be around 8 inches. We're looking at either a round tapered pole, which would be a little bit narrower at the top, or it could be a straight 8 inches up the entire distance. So these are fairly small things that you will see them from a distance. But again, it's not a whole lot different in terms of diameter than the 30-foot net posts that we have out there. The diameter of the 16-foot poles isn't a whole lot. It's actually narrower than the street lights we have, which are 5 inches by 5 inches. So it's not bulky at all. It's not significant. It's light infrastructure.
And the large majority of the new poles, I mean, I know there's a few, but the large majority are interior to the site.
Correct.
And the max height of the main building is 46 or higher, right? 46 feet or a little higher.
The main building is close to 50 feet with the parapet on top. So the 46-foot poles would technically be, the top would be below that top parapet elevation. So,
Thank you.
okay. Okay, in terms of the zoning, how this fits, because it's not a typical use, but we're looking at all these poles essentially as an incidental use to the athletic training use. There was a very specific athletic training use that was spelled out in the OL 40 PUD zone. So we're looking at it as incidental to that use and thus allowable. With regards to height measurements, there's a few things to go over in terms of how we looked at it. The zone permits principal buildings up to 50 feet. The zone also permits light poles up to 90 feet, noting that even of our athletic poles, only 2 are at 90, the majority are at 80. It also permitted a single indoor field building up to 65, and it permitted netting and net posts up to 30 feet. There is no specific accessory structure height requirement in this zone. Our interpretation of the zoning was that the poles would be allowed up to 50 foot, consistent with being an incidental use. So that was how we interpreted the use. We did identify, I'll say, side yard setbacks. We wanted to take a conservative approach with this, especially with the anchors, understanding that even though the net posts and netting is approved, it's allowable at those locations, we did recognize that putting even a small GPS may slightly change how that's being used, that structure. So we are requesting variances for those anchor locations where the netting was in the setback with a conservative assumption that, gee, this could be treated a little bit differently at this point. So let's request the variance for those anchors.
With respect to the anchors that violate the setback, you are not adding any new poles. These are just anchors that are on existing poles, correct?
They're either on existing poles or they're going to have fence post extensions on an existing fence post to elevate that elevation up to 16, which would be 6 feet above the top of the chain link, but still basically within the line of the netting.
And the netting is how
Up to
tall?
30 feet tall. Okay.
So if I could ask a point of clarification, none of the new proposed poles are within the required setbacks.
Anchors. There's one camera pole that might be in the setback.
There's one camera pole that is within the setback. Essentially, that we're requesting 171 feet. The setback requirement on that side is 175 feet. The setback for structures on this side is essentially greater than what the setback was on the two residential sides. The reason for this is essentially we've moved the pole inside the interior. To move it any further away would essentially encroach on the playing field.
Can you point out that pole? I mean, I don't know if everybody can see it, but just to make sure Chris and others know where it is. So it's the pink rectangle right in the middle.
Pink rectangle behind the goal on the south side of Field 1, adjacent to Prescott Drive.
So one more time, how far, what's the setback distance on that?
171 feet versus 175.
Oh, 170.
And on the other side of Prescott, it faces the golf course, correct?
Yeah.
I mean. Yeah, that's it.
There were two with the setback on the,
Yes.
okay, also on the, to the right or to the left on this view also? Anchor
Setback
post?
on the,
Yeah.
the other side.
Yeah, I'll
Oh, you haven't
through
got
that
to
in a
that
minute,
yet.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you want to show that?
Well, let me finish with these.
Yep.
So as Nick mentioned, this one it's pretty close to the setback. We're requesting 4 feet at this location. Additionally, the rest of the variances being requested are for anchors. A majority of these anchors are installed directly on a net post. For example, if I go to the corner here, there's definitely a net post at this corner. So this would be essentially just a new device anchored with a small bracket on top on a 30-foot pole. Others, the spacing
At
doesn't.
16 feet.
At 16
on a
feet.
30-foot pole.
Correct. Other locations, the spacing of the netting doesn't always, it's not consistent with what the anchor spacing needs. So that's really the reason for why the extensions are on the fence post at most locations. This is another location. It's a corner post, so we know it's there. These likely, the other ones are pretty much, they'll have extensions onto existing fence posts. Moving around to the other two variances. These are both, again, on corner posts, so they're installed on the existing net posts on the corner. It would be a new small bracket on a 30-foot post, but they are within the setback area, so again, we're taking a conservative approach with the anchors. Just go through. In total, what we ended up with was the one variance for the camera pole behind Field 1. And in terms of the anchors, there was a total of 10 variances for the anchor, I'll say anchor extensions, anchor brackets.
Are you able to quantify those for us, like each one, how far they are?
The variance varies from 126 to 174. I can tell you the two on the west side of Field 4,
Those are the two we're looking at.
the two we're looking at right now are 113 feet and 121 feet. The setback on that side is 125 feet as well versus 175 on the Prescott side.
Wait, Chris, did you get that?
Understood. So we have two that are respectively 113 and 121 proposed, and 125 is required for both, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's 2 out of 8, or 2 out of 10, right?
Correct.
Okay. And as we go, I'm sure you.
Yes.
What, do you want to go through the other 8?
I think we probably need it for.
Okay, yeah.
I hate to make it really.
No.
The minimum is 126 in the corner. Yeah, I don't have these measured off the rest of them. It varies from 126 at the corner up to basically 174. There's two at 174.
That's all where 175 is.
Correct.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm not being appropriate, but can I ask to slow this down? I think a few of us are lost.
Okay.
Right, so where we're at right now is we're putting in, it looks like 10 anchor poles that are outside of the required setback, and one camera pole that's outside of the required
But
setback.
hold on,
The-
but an anchor is an antenna.
No, I understand.
Okay.
It's that simple. I mean, that's what we're talking about, like 11 poles that don't fit.
No.
the as-
Well, we're not putting in
No.
a pole.
The camera is on a new pole. The setback for the anchors is on top of, it's either mounted directly to a 30-foot pole
That
or
already exists?
that already exists, or
Why
it's,
is that a variance?
we're treating it like it's new structure because the zoning was specifically that was essentially a net post.
We want to be conservative
Yeah.
because we're saying, conservative that someone could say that it's another use because there's now an antenna on a post that exists.
It's essentially exacerbating an existing non-conforming condition. If that makes sense. Right? So like if you think about it like this, if you got a house.
Could you speak into the mic so we can hear you, please?
For example, if you have a single-story home and it's required to have a 10-foot setback and it has a 5-foot setback, if you put a second story on, same footprint, you need another variance to permit that setback because now you're putting more building mass within the required setback. Does that make sense?
Extreme, but yes.
Okay, well, that's
The anchor sounds a lot smaller.
right. Well,
Yeah.
nevertheless, they're being conservative and requesting it anyway, but you understand the principle.
But that's true. That's the technical requirement. That's why we're asking for them. But of all the setbacks, there's only one new pole in the setback, and that's the camera pole, which is 171 feet away from the setback, when we're at 175 is required.
I'm
All the
clear
other
on that now.
setbacks.
It was getting confusing
No, of
when we started
course.
talking about,
Of course.
it sounded like you were putting 10 new poles and they were
Right,
too close to the railroad track. So
yes.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, and how many of those, well, usually, certainly on that, to the south of the picture, I don't know which drawing south is, the antenna are all below the height of, that whole end have the nets, right?
Correct. The nets are along the entire perimeter. So everywhere,
So along that side, the only thing that would extend above the existing nets is the two camera poles, or the two cameras at that end. Two camera poles at the end of fields. Well, actually, the four fields, right? Would be higher than at 46 feet, the cameras would be higher than the nets.
correct.
Okay. But the antenna poles would all be actually below, you would be below the height of the existing nets.
Correct.
Okay.
I got a clarification. The nets are 30 feet above the height of the fence below it. The total height is 30
Total
feet.
height is 30, so it would be 20 feet above the fence, the
Okay,
top of the
thank you.
fence.
And below Prescott is the golf course, correct? I mean, below on your.
South of Prescott is the golf
And this
course.
is a-
Correct.
So, yeah, south. Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that.
That's what I had, Nick, unless there's more questions or.
It just relates back to something that I think you said early on, and it's not about cameras or nets or anchors. You said field 7, you were not putting any cameras or whatnot. Did I hear that right?
Field 7A,
Field 7.
which is the half field north of Field 7.
Okay, so because I was looking at field 7.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Right.
7A.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah.
I just wanted to clarify, as it is confusing. So all the camera poles are new, right? They're not going on, those are all new. 25 new poles, camera poles that are 30, well, whatever number of feet high. 46 feet high, okay. Now, the anchor poles, are those, we should interpret those like antennas? Is that what anchor poles are? Or,
It's a regular pole, almost like you would put a street light on. It's 4-inch diameter, goes up 16
Right.
feet, but there'll be a little box. Let me get
The box is the antenna.
got it, okay. So there's a
Pole
pole,
is
it's just a
just
regular
a
thing,
pole
right?
that is-
6
So,
by 9 inches. Yeah.
36 new anchor poles and then 46 additional boxes on existing poles. Is that correct?
Existing poles, buildings.
Right,
yeah,
whatever
right.
wherever you can put them.
Correct.
Okay, so the total of these little boxes, which are
It's a lot.
Yeah, sure. But more than half of them, like you said, 46 of them are on existing structures.
Yes.
And then there's a creation of 36 16-foot poles for putting the boxes on
Yes.
in areas where you don't have structure to do that on.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question. I'm curious about why you didn't include this in an earlier portion of your application, why you didn't come to us with this originally or in the second round.
We had a placeholder in the original application, but at the time, I'll say there wasn't a recommendation from the global soccer unit in terms of what direction we were moving. So if you did go back and look at the original application, there were various locations with poles and infrastructure identified as camera poles. It's just the details weren't there to get it to the point where it was ready to seek final approval. But
Go ahead, yeah, and I'll say one more thing about that, because I was talking directly to Tim Slade about this, and so we were trying to make this system as efficient as possible. If there were higher poles initially, but the system had not been finally analyzed. So we didn't want to present some, and Jim didn't want us to present something that wasn't fully baked and had higher poles than we needed until we had it down. And it wasn't until recently, after a lot of hard work from Rich and John Amorosa behind me with his Austrian counterparts, that they really were able to get the specifics and specifications of the system. But that work helped because it brought down the height of some of those poles considerably.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
I wondered whether it had to do with choosing between alternative technologies and different kinds of systems, different vendors, and how permanent this particular solution may be. I mean, in 3 years, are you going to want something different? It seems possible. I'm not using that as an argument to say we should not approve what you're proposing here. I'm just asking the question because I'm curious.
there's a fair amount of infrastructure here. You want to, yeah?
No, you're actually.
I'm sworn in.
You're sworn in.
Yep.
Yeah, so ultimately, yes, technology does go forward. And the main reason why we didn't have something previously is that our global group had not settled on what they wanted to roll out worldwide. And they have settled on that now. They've made arrangements or made deals with certain companies, one for the camera system and one for the antenna system, the anchor system. Those technologies really won't change. The method of collection will not change. The software and everything else that goes along with it probably will. But the methodology of gathering the data is not going to change. That'll be, I mean, there's, it started out just, when I played high school football, they had one camera on top of the press box recording the game. Well, they realized that wasn't enough. So then you start adding more. So that's really where this came down to. And as Nick indicated, we had a lot of back and forth with our sporting group and headquarters to right size this. They were really, I won't say going overboard, but they wanted more data, so more antennas, more higher cameras, locations, and we got it down to what we were very comfortable with, and know that it'll give us the information that they're looking for.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I'm sorry, sir. Just your name.
John Amorosa.
Right.
John Amorosa. AMOROSA.
Business address, please.
1207 Reading,
Avenue, Cape May, New Jersey, 08204.
Thank you, sir.
Mr.
I have
Alyssa.
a couple other questions.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're done with your testimony.
Yes.
We cut you off.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so,
yeah.
so I'm concerned a little bit about privacy. So there's a whole bunch of people that live in the area, right? And there's cameras all over the place and somebody's out cooking and maybe has too many cocktails. I don't know. But the point is, how can I be assured that the neighbors won't be losing their privacy?
Yes.
And second is a follow-up question. You had said that the cameras were all hardwired. So I'm assuming there's no radio frequency. So somebody's not going to be able to steal these biometrics.
Correct.
Okay. So that's to protect the players.
The biometrics is transmitted, but it's encrypted. So it's all encrypted data. So nothing that from the, they wear a monitoring device on their body that basically is simply tracking heart rate, respiration rate, body temperature, movement, acceleration, total distance traveled, how many times, all of that, as well as positioning. But all of that is sent over encrypted.
So there's like two questions. Number one is I'm concerned about the cameras spying on me, but I'm also concerned about radio frequency because I don't EMFs, all that stuff. I don't know if it's true, but we hear about it all the time.
It works off of the GPS system that's in your phone. So it's no different than what you have, carrying around in your pocket.
And how do you protect the privacy?
The privacy with the cameras, with what as Rich mentioned, that because these are all digital cameras and it's all software generated video, the cameras can be digitally altered to black out anything that's outside the field of play. Matter of fact, they do that quite a bit because when a digital camera is recording data, everything in that view, like right now, anything that's behind us is being recorded as well. So that's just extra bits of data that are extraneous and are not necessary. So they try to cut it down to just to cover the field of play.
Who's they?
The video analytics people that set up the system, and that's what we will
So
do.
you actually are filming the neighbor next door, but somebody is then digitally going in there and cutting it out?
No, the camera is digitally. So if you have do you have a Ring camera at all?
I have zero technology.
Okay.
I don't even know how to use my
So
phone.
it works very similar to a Ring camera. You can pick out a section of the background and delete it.
So you'll do that ahead of time?
It won't record
Yes.
it.
Okay.
It won't record it. You can permanently set it so that it won't record that information. And that's what they would do. And it would actually be blacked out on when they play it back.
And that's what
you'll
we
see.
would do.
That's what we would do.
So
I
we would
keep saying they,
certify
but that I mean that's
That's what we would certify.
we would certify it.
Okay, so I don't want to go down the dark web, but
Yes.
so is there anybody that checks to make sure what you say you're doing? Like, is it a government thing? Is it a planning? Like, who's checking to make sure you really do black it out?
You can check.
You could check.
But we don't want it because any extraneous data is bad for us. So
Well, it just
It takes up, I'm sure it's space.
Space is money.
Right.
Space is money.
Yeah, I wanted to make people feel comfortable that
Absolutely.
they're not going to be.
So two things to notice, as Rich indicated, the cameras are panoramic cameras or PTZs. And the panoramic cameras will just view the field. So there's unlikely that, and even beyond the field, if they're viewing beyond the field, that's the area that they would black out from recording. So it won't even record anything in there. It'll only record what's on the field. The same thing with the PTZs. PTZs will be altered so that they can't move other than the field of view of the field, and they can't turn around and look at the audience. They can only look at this field of view. They will be digitally locked, so they can do that. And the second part is that the video feeds and the other data is only available to the video analytics team. There's not anybody else that can get into it. It's all very proprietary, it's on a completely separate system from any other networks that were in the building. It's not even on the security network. So security guards can't even, look at it or anything like that. It's just solely for the video analytics team.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions from the comments from the board professionals? Liz? No? Joe? No? Okay, then any questions of these witnesses from the public? Okay, please step up. Name and address.
Good evening, Lee Goldberg, 10 Arrowhead Road. Just curious, what is the average weight of one of the cameras? Like 10 pounds, 4 pounds, a pound,
I would say somewhere between 5 and 10 pounds.
5 and 10 pounds? And is there any concern at all, given the height going up there and they're, I guess, rated once they're on the poles for, I mean, that area does get very windy. Is there any concern with any wind or what they're rated for in terms of staying up, especially if they're affixed to an already existing pole?
The poles, the brackets are going to be designed for, I think it's 110 mile per hour wind plus gusts that go with 100. And that's per the building code.
Okay, great. Thanks for,
In addition, the cameras do have a security lanyard to back to the pole so that if something happens with the bracket, the camera won't fall. It'll still stay attached to the pole.
okay, thank you for clarifying that. I have a question along Prescott Road. I don't know if you can zoom in on that part of the drawing. Yeah, so those green circles there along Prescott, in between the green, yeah, if you could just go down a little to the green circles, I think, yeah, so right in there. So the black circles in between the yellow circles, are those are the existing poles for the netting? Or is that?
It could be.
It's more a line style. It's not the square, that just, it's a style that there is a fence and net there. So it's
Okay,
not,
so right, so there is existing, there's currently netting poles that are in place.
Yes.
Where are they
Correct.
represented on this drawing? Are those the green,
They're
the
not.
yellows? They're
No.
not.
they're not.
What the individual poles are not, but the line represents where the line of the fence is and the line of poles.
And so the
So the
yellow,
individual poles are not showing up.
the individual poles are not certain, and the yellow circles are intended to be,
Those are
Pole-
anchors that will be installed either on an existing net post or on an extension to an existing fence post.
so the existing posts that are there now may have an extension put on them.
Yes,
And that's what the, okay, so,
yes.
and the way those are, so once those two units are joined together or married together in some way, from an engineering construction perspective, they're rated for 110 mile an hour winds.
Correct. The net posts were designed for 110. The fence was designed for 110. Drawings, calcs were provided to the building department for that construction. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then my only concern is along Prescott there, because is there any, with the space and the distance, if one of those poles were to go over, once you put the extensions on them with the cameras, is there any chance they could fall into Prescott Road where you do have a lot of traffic there? Are they so far back off of Prescott that even if they were to topple, it wouldn't sort of go onto Prescott? Or
They're pretty far set back, and I would say they'd have to, hypothetically, if something happened, it would have to break, go through the net, then go through a line of landscaping, then cover another, I'm going to say 50 plus feet.
Okay,
In the case of field
But
1 and
just if
2,
they
Prescott
reach-
is,
But just if they fell over,
it would just fall over.
but
Yeah.
they're not going to reach the road.
No,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. And then the last question is, have you designed any, I think Mr. Alesso was concerned about the neighbor's privacy. I'm concerned just a little bit about what the neighbor's viewscape might be or their view shed might change. Do you have any renderings or drawings with all of these additional poles on what folks that live there, especially on the top behind Stockton, what their view shed or how their view might actually change in terms of the numerous additional poles? Or
I don't think we see a change to the view shed, just because, again, it's 46-foot poles and the building is 50. I'm certain if you walked along Stockton long enough and you tried to find a certain angle and you looked hard enough between the berm, the trees, you could probably see
See
it.
them, okay.
But at the end of the day, you're going to have to want to go find them to go see them.
But from the home, you don't believe that unless you're really like going up to the berm and trying to look for them, you're going to see them. Is that your testimony?
That is.
Right.
the building blocks of view. And then from the opposite side of the tract, up by where the Con Road is, there's I think 4 acres of a flat field that's been sort of given to the township for future use. Would that view shed change at all in terms of number of poles or anything that you might see?
You're talking near the train tracks.
Correct. There's a big wide open expand. I mean, you can see the 80-foot poles there now. I mean, so, I mean, that's certainly a view change to residents. I'm just wondering.
You'd have to really look for it, because
Okay.
again, you'd have to see through that line of trees, and keeping in mind that those athletic poles are at 80 and 90 feet. These are at 46. So I know the view shed you're talking about, but you're gonna have to see through that tree line to get these. And keep in mind, the top of these, the 46-foot poles, we're saying 8 inches, but a round tapered option is 5 inches at top. So you're going to have to really have excellent vision,
Okay.
binoculars, or look.
Just trying to get a sense of the scale of it, that's all.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for answering, appreciate it.
Any other questions from the public on this, for this witness, these witnesses? Okay,
We have nothing further.
nothing? Okay.
Nothing further unless the board has any questions. of the professor.
Any other questions
No
or
questions
comments?
for me.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the application as presented.
Oops.
Wait,
Get out of yourself, Mr. Lewis. Sorry. Still going to do public comment, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, that's right. That was public questions. Now we have to have public comment. All right. Any comments on this application from the public? Thank you, Chris. Hearing none, we'll close public comment session. So,
I'll
Now-
remake the motion that we approve this application as presented this evening.
I'll second.
Would you guys like me to summarize what's
yes, please
requested real
summarize
quick?
before, yeah,
Okay.
right.
Just so we understand, everyone knows
Yeah,
what's
make
being
sure
requested.
that's-
The applicant here is seeking amended preliminary and final major site plan approval, several variances. One for the, we're treating this as an accessory structure, well, I guess some sort of, all right, for the setback for the camera pole. They're proposing 171 feet where 175 feet is required. Two of the antenna poles would be positioned respectively 113 and 121 feet from the side yard setback line where 125 feet is required. And then 8 poles, also antenna poles, would be positioned ranging from 126 to 174 feet where 175 feet is required. As far as conditions go, I don't think I saw anything in the TCC report that would really apply here because they provided that exhibit. The Environmental Commission did, I'd have this on my desk. We got a memo from them dated today. They offered no recommendations. As far as things that were offered or stipulated to during the hearing, the only thing I captured was the condition, this was offered by the applicant, that the cameras would only, let me just go back to it, they would pixelate any non-play field activity. And I guess, I don't know who else would review that, but I would suppose the board or the township engineering department, I guess prior to a final CO.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking for that in the resolution, that someone has the right to validate what they're testing.
Right. Joe, do you feel comfortable looking at those cameras?
We'll look at that through a zoning function of the zoning officer in my department of engineering.
Okay. Right. And I think that's it, unless I'm leaving something out, please remind me.
Well, I think that captured everything. Sounds right. So, you okay going ahead with
The
your
motion still stands as,
Chris, my motion
as
still
detailed.
stands. You
And I
articulated
still second.
fantastic.
And the second?
I still
Okay,
second.
could you call the roll then?
Mr. Alessa?
Yes.
Ms. Van Order?
Yes.
Mr. Flowers?
Yes.
Mr. Rabbit?
Yes.
Ms. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Benoit?
Yes.
Mr. Quillen?
Yes.
Mr. Rubio?
yes,
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
thank you.
I'm going to miss you, Nick.
With all that great data, we're expecting the Red Bulls to really be extremely successful.
When can I rent my?
Don't be saying that in front of Mark.
I'm not going to. Chairman, may I take a 2-second break?
Yes, yes, please. Take a break here for a few minutes. If that's okay. Back on. I'm going to. So, yes, I guess let's call the roll just for make sure since we're back.
Mr. Alessa?
Here.
Mr. Van Order,
Here.
Mr. Flowers,
Here.
Mr. Rabbit,
Still here.
I'm here too.
Mr. Benoit,
I'm here.
Mr. Quillen,
Here.
Ms. Gariglia,
Here.
Mr. Vine,
Here.
Mr. Solisky,
Here.
Ms. Laney, here, Mr. Lewis,
Here.
and I saw Ms. Santiago.
Okay, then moving on to the second public hearing tonight, PB 0425. Sonia, would you introduce that for us?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is PB 04-25 Springbrook Country Club for an amended site plan with variance. This is block 5801 and 5802, lots 1 and 19 Springbrook Road in the OSDU zone. Applicant proposes construction of a clubhouse addition and improvement to the existing patio terrace with other related improvements.
And Mr. Chairman, before I throw it over to applicant's counsel, I'll just mention for the record, I did have an opportunity to review the notice of tonight's hearing. Found it to be sufficient in terms of both its content and timeliness of service. It was sent by certified mail to owners of property within 200 feet of the subject property between April 11th and April 21st. And also published in the Daily Record on April 11th, both more than 10 days in advance of tonight's hearing. So the board has jurisdiction to hear and decide the case in my humble legal opinion. So I'll throw it over to Mr. Kelly. Let him get.
No such thing as a humble legal.
Yeah, I guess not.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members. Nice to see everybody. Larry Callie on behalf of the applicant, Springbrook Country Club. Appreciate being here tonight. Mr. Chairman, as always, we would like to briefly frame what we hope to do here this evening, what brings us to the board for this site plan review. I'll introduce you to our witness deck and what you're going to hear this evening. We think will be relatively straightforward with our application. There's not all that many moving parts to this project. This board knows this site very well. We've been here on numerous prior site plan applications before the board. Most recently, about a little over 2 years ago, we were here before this board for an approval for improvements. And thematically with the club, there's betterment opportunities. The club is able to improve the site for its current membership, and the applicant, often finds their way to this board for a site plan review, as we do tonight. For the record, briefly, Mr. Chairman and members, the site is the multiple lots of the country club, which is about 163 acres, give or take, site-wide. We're in the OSGU zone. And the improvements tonight are not changing anything about the use of the site. The site's a country club today. It's going to be that tomorrow. The site membership is not changing. We are not growing. We are just giving more accommodations and amenities to our existing membership. And those include a few things. It includes a nominal expansion to the clubhouse. Our project architect will walk you through that after with the elevations and the floor plan loop of that expansion of the clubhouse. We are improving beyond the clubhouse as well, patio areas, deck areas, very nice appointments just beyond the club areas for the existing members to have options and alternatives to go into different areas of the facility, pretty much in the center of the site for the most part, where all this development is happening for those patio and terrace areas for the members of the club. It brings us here for a few reasons. One is it triggers preliminary and final major site plan review. There's a couple of nuanced bulk variances that go along with it. Most notably, it relates to parking. Every time we're here for this club or Morris County Golf, whatever country club, we always have parking requirements because the sites are large. The parking fields are normally relatively limited because we don't want to park more than we need to. But the clubhouses and the other structures trigger the demand for parking, and our delta ends up being big, what we have versus what we need under the code. Here, there's no change in parking being proposed now. There's no new members, as I explained. However, the expansion of the clubhouse brings with it an increased delta of the parking demand. So our off-street parking requirement has always been out of whack with this property, numerically, code versus what we have, and that's going to be the same tomorrow if this were approved by the board. Parking stall size, retaining wall height, some limited relief, all within the confines of the existing country club property with no change in use proposed, but it brings with it some bulk relief. So tonight, Mr. Chair and members, you're going to hear from three different folks, three different experts. Our first will be Mr. Byra. He's a civil engineer from Bowler Engineering. Bowler is the scrivener of record of the site plans that everyone on the board has on file tonight. We'll introduce two exhibits, perhaps more throughout the balance of the testimony, but Mr. Byra will introduce a few exhibits to sort of zone in on the areas of improvement so we can illustrate a little better for the board, besides the black and white copies, what we're going to do here by way of this improvement. We've got our project architect with us. We've got limited improvements to the clubhouse, but Mr. Buckley's office was key to a lot of this development and the vision of this development. So our second witness will be our project architect, Mr. Buckley. And then, although I class the variances as limited and nuanced, they're variances nonetheless. This board needs to hear variance testimony, we think. So Paul Ricky, our project planner, will be here to testify as to the variances. Paul was with us during the prior application as well, and we had some limited bulk relief for the tennis huts during the 2023 application. So very familiar with the project and the property as well. We hope to be relatively expeditious, Mr. Chairman. Tonight we'll answer all the questions you folks may have and your staff, but that's essentially what we're going to do tonight. If I could add one thing, we all miss Jim and Dave, but Mr. Vooch is fantastic. You know, they say water seeks its own level. It's an engineering term, so you found a great board, and a great board found you. So it's very good to see you in that chair, as much as we miss Jim and Dave. And I realize you don't get to vote tonight, so it's.
Yeah, okay, well, do you want to swear the witnesses all in at this time, and our professionals?
Sure,
Well, they've
we'll
already-
have three, then we'll qualify them as we go, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, yeah, then yes, right.
Sounds good. Okay, so everybody's testifying. Oh, I wasn't sure. Yeah, we're getting all you guys. And Liz and Joe, are you ready? Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't see your arm. I was like, my fault. Okay. If all five of you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Okay.
So our first witness, Mr. Chairman, members, will be Robert Byra. He's the civil engineer of record from Bowler Engineering. Bob, if you would, for the benefit of the board, just put your name on the record, state your last name, and provide an address, please.
Certainly. Robert Byra, B as in boy, Y-R-A, from Bowler Engineering, address 30 Garber Square, Ridgewood, New Jersey.
For the benefit of the board, your background and credentials in the field of civil engineering.
Certainly. I have a Bachelor's of Science and a Master's of Science in Civil Engineering from NJIT. I've been licensed as a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey since 2009. And this is the first opportunity I've had before your board, and my license is in good standing.
You have testified before other land use boards?
Yes, I
Okay,
have.
just not-
About 30 or
No,
so
okay,
more
okay.
land use boards throughout the state.
Okay, yeah, I'll accept the qualifications. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Bob, you heard my proffer to the board as to what brings us here for this enhancement to the club property tonight. If you would, walk the board through the areas that we're improving, what we have there today, what we propose to be developed there tomorrow, and then we can start discussing the limited relief that we've got along the way.
Certainly.
And if you're going to go to an exhibit, we'll mark it as you get there. I think you might be, right?
It's like the annoying fire.
Okay. If you could just, so certainly, we'll mark this as A1. It's the first of, I think, what might be two exhibits from Mr. Byra's deck. This is the colored site plan, March 19, 2025?
So the first exhibit, A1, is an aerial exhibit that's dated April 30th, 2025.
That's not in the package.
And just referring the board to the left side of the screen, this is an aerial exhibit of the property in question. The yellow outline is the limits of the country club. If we zoom into the center of the property, you will see a red square. This is identifying the subject area of the proposed improvements on Lot 1. The proposed improvements are approximately 450 feet away from the closest property line. To the right side of the figure is an enlargement of the same aerial exhibit, this time focusing in on the existing clubhouse area. The red outline that's shown on the right-hand side of the screen is the approximate limits of the improvement. In the center of the screen is the existing clubhouse area. The area to the left or to the west of the clubhouse is a sloped existing grass area that has a grade of about 25%. And further down on the left-hand side is an existing cartway, asphalt cartway. I will now refer to Exhibit A2. Exhibit A2 is the same landscape and site plans that are part of the planning board application document. However, it has been rendered with coloring just to amplify the illustration of the application. In addition, in the background, you will see the aerial exhibit shown on the prior exhibit is also shown just for full illustrative purposes. Just to be clear, Exhibit A2 is titled Site Plan with a revision date of March 19th, 2025. In the light gray area towards the center of the screen, you will see the outline of the existing clubhouse area. To the top left or to the northwest corner, you will see a dark screened area. This is the approximate 1,300 square foot addition that is being constructed as part of the improvements. To the bottom left of that area, you will see a lighter screened area. This is a elevated terrace or an upper terrace. The architect will discuss further detail about this terrace area. However, it will be covered and will have a finish of porcelain tile. And then to the left of the addition and the upper terrace is a lower terrace. This is shown in the lighter, say, beige color. This this lower terrace is held back from the existing grade by a proposed retaining wall that starts along the northerly portion of the building and in a counterclockwise direction traverses around where the proposed limits are. This retaining wall varies in height, starting at 3 feet on the northerly portion of the addition, has a maximum height of about 8.9 feet at the center of the wall, and then tapering back down between 3 to 5 feet along the southerly part. You'll notice here on the exhibit, you see 3 bulging areas. These are fireplaces that are going to be constructed on the lower terrace that are going to be facing inward to the clubhouse area. Directly downhill or down gradient of the retaining wall, you will see an illustration of various shrubbery and trees that are going to be planted. As part of the improvements, 2 trees will be removed from the property, and based on the ordinance, only 1 replacement tree is required. However, the applicant is going to be constructing and installing 8 trees altogether. In addition, there's a variety of about 170 different types of shrubs that are going to be planted throughout. In addition to the addition, there's going to be some minor driveway improvements on the south side of the property. The applicant is proposing to widen the existing 15-foot wide driveway to about 20 feet wide. The purpose of that is just to improve the truck turning maneuvers and efficiency of dropping materials off to the lower level of the clubhouse. And just going back to where the landscape and the wall area is, we will be proposing, 2 3-foot high boulder style walls that I'm circling on the exhibit. They're shown in brown. These are to mimic the existing boulder style walls that are along the existing cartway path. And the remainder of the area that's shown in light green, this will be the restoration of the grass area that gets disturbed as part of construction. It will be restored in kind to be grass. As Mr. Cowley stated at the onset, we are requesting 3 variances as part of the application. Just again, to go on record, there are 627 parking spaces required by ordinance, where we are proposing to maintain the existing 264 spaces. We are requesting relief in the ordinance where a maximum of a 4-foot high retaining wall is permitted. However, at the highest point along midline of the clubhouse, we are proposing 8.9 feet. And as part of the project, we are disturbing approximately 7,200 square feet of some of the steep area on this hillside, which is necessary for the purposes of construction. However, we are disturbing it, so we are requesting some relief for that temporary disturbance. However, that disturbance will be restored and stable at the completion of construction. As part of all these improvements, we will be removing portions of the existing patio that's there, and with the addition of the terrace improvements and sidewalk widening, there will be an increase of about 7,400 square feet of impervious area. That will be managed by the construction of a new 10-foot diameter dry well in the southwest corner of the existing building that I'm circling, and surrounded by the proposed trees that are there. This will manage a majority of the runoff coming from the impervious area. And as stated before, because the clubhouse sits higher in elevation and runs down gradient towards the cart path, it continues down gradient even further to an existing pond on site. So any stormwater that's not captured within the drywall system will run directly into the pond. And because of where these improvements are situated in the middle of the property, as I stated, 450 feet away, any type of additional runoff is going to be de minimis and will not have any direct impact to any of the neighbors. And that's the conclusion of my direct testimony. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Bob. Questions?
No, I just want to say thank you for that presentation because I was having difficulty conceptualizing the project just from the plan. So that was very helpful.
One question, how high is the existing boulder retaining wall that's right in front that's essentially being replaced? That holds up now what would be the lower, which will be the lower terrace. But
It sits anywhere between 3 to 5 feet high.
oh, okay, because it looks higher than that when you stand down below and look up. The difference between the base of the wall and above looks higher than the 3 or
I'm
4.
barely above 5 feet, so everything feels much taller.
Oh, okay, but am I correct? I had a little difficulty just looking at the plans, but
Would you like me to zoom in?
No, I just as general, it appears to me that, well, there's the slight clubhouse extension that actually is enlarging which is going out to what is now a terrace area, right?
That's correct.
And then the terrace adjacent to that is right now where there's what kind of an awning over the lower terrace that's being a permanent structure to cover and being a structural, so you can actually access that, which now just kind of an awning. And the lower terrace is kind of basically the area that is now above that boulder wall, the very low grade kind of slight slope between there and that rock wall, and it's extended north and south. But that's kind of you've made a permanent roof over what's now a terrace, and that terrace is just expanded out forward a little bit into what is now a planted area and relatively flat area above the existing retaining. Is that correct in my interpretation of the drawings?
Yes, that is
okay,
accurate.
Thank you. Yes, I found
I agree that, it was a lot to look at in that engineering site plan. But is part of this also inclusive of new or improved walkways or stairways, or is that just a misinterpretation that I have looking at
Yes,
the drawings?
you are correct, and I did breeze over that. Along the northerly portion of the property, and I will zoom in just for the benefit of the board. You can see that there's a combination of existing and new stairways because of the transition in the elevations. This is a ramp to provide ADA access to the lower patio area. As I continue again in the southerly direction, you'll see another set of stairs transitioning up to the upper terrace area from the lower terrace area. Another set of architectural style stairs leading again from the lower to the upper. And then there's a grand stairway leading from the lower terrace area downward towards the existing driveway area.
One more question on the, you mentioned the increasing the impervious surface and the drainage, is some increase, and there is an existing dry well and drainage system. This is an expansion of that, right?
That's correct. I'll zoom in slightly again to the southerly portion of the drawings. There is an existing dry well on the southerly side of the where the proposed driveway improvements are. the lighter white area with the manhole designated as D, this is where the proposed 10-foot diameter dry well will be constructed. There will be an interconnection between the two, so essentially it's acting as a much larger dry well system.
And I guess I would just ask the engineer if the stormwater management plan was presented is adequate to cover that. It looks pretty good to me.
Yeah.
What do I know?
We're essentially pending a prior system
Right.
with additional storage for that contributory area.
Okay. And again, as you said, even any overflow, well, anything is always drained down into those ponds, and that doesn't change. So, right. Okay. Any other questions?
I have a quick question.
Yes, Mr. Roberts.
I'm not sure, Bob,
Yes.
if you're the right person to address this, or it'll come later on. I didn't see anything here with regard to any kind of green infrastructure, whether it be additional EV parking spaces. I think one of your documents said that you have two parking spaces now shared for one charger. Has any thought been given to, going full electric, some possibly solar on the roof while you're doing all these renovations?
I'll split that up because the term green is very broad.
Yes.
So the dry well system is a form of a green infrastructure under the NJDEP regulations for stormwater. In regards to the parking area, there are 2 existing EV parking spaces. My understanding, there's 4. There are 4 EV ready spaces, meaning that the conduit is constructed underground, and should the country club elect to install additional, they can do so. And I cannot comment on anything with the solar.
Okay, it's good to know that there's some infrastructure for additional EV charging stations. The country is moving quickly toward that tipping point where people are concerned about their carbon footprint. So it's good to know that you'll have that ready when you deem it necessary. As for solar, I guess, is anybody I'm going to listen to tonight going to be able to address, as long as you're changing the structure to adding any kind of solar panels?
Architect can give you his thoughts, but it's not part of the programming for this project, but our architect can certainly speak to it conceptually, maybe prospectively moving forward, but it wasn't part of this current proposal, any type of solar implementation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Yes.
Chairman, just a couple, kind of picking up on the EV thing. I think it was the Environmental Commission said you guys might need, somebody mentioned it, that you might need a variance for the lack of any EV charging stations. I don't know if that's for Mr. Byra to weigh in on, or Mr. Ricci. Also, there was another variance Mr. Cali mentioned at the beginning, I didn't hear, regarding the parking stall dimensions. I just want to understand what relief is necessary.
Yeah, so parking stall dimensions, I think the township probably still has the 10 by 20 requirement, and we've got existing on site, like most properties do in a township, 9 by 18 existing. That's a no change situation, so there is relief for that.
Right, understood. Okay. It's the same.
If the code's been changed,
for the EV charging?
Changed that.
Yeah.
I thought we
Was
changed
that
the
eventually
parking.
changed? I know it was talked about for years, yeah.
No, we changed it.
Everybody needed it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I remember, yeah. I still notice for it, just anyway. It reminds me of the good old days.
That was my note.
Yes, and there's no change in any parking on this one.
There was not.
And then this application, right? The only change it's just give you a little better radius for that turn on the, going up to the surface area there, I guess. Is that change is the only little widening, I guess. Yeah.
On item 1 of the document received March 26, 16, does say a variance to permit 193 off-street parking stalls, whereas 305 are required. So are you asking for a new variance for parking?
We do. Those are not exactly the numbers, but we are, because the delta is increasing now because of the expansion of the clubhouse, technically. So our requirement is going up. There's a net change of 0 as far as what we're proposing on site. What's there today is the same number that's going to be there tomorrow.
Okay.
But the requirement technically increases because of the volume of the square footage of the space, yes. So we technically need a variance for off-street parking.
So you're not expecting to increase your membership
We are not.
to,
no.
to accommodate it? Okay.
Yeah, every club has their charter. They've got their caps of maximums of what can be, allowed by way of membership. That there is no growth anticipated, nor is that the goal of this project. This is for existing
So you
membership.
don't anticipate any more vehicles? Okay.
We do not, no, not through this project.
Anything? Joe?
To clarify on our council's comment regarding the electric vehicles, the Environmental Commission site review referenced for electric vehicle parking, there's no reference to whether EV parking is included, but because a variance is needed for the parking, they were recommending compliance with the township's EV parking ordinance. So as we track through that, right, EV is triggered by an addition of 25 or more. That's your threshold. So everything under 25 or more new at the time of application is exempt from adding additional EV parking requirements. So when you look at EV parking, you wouldn't look at your total parking count and then assess it against the grid of the EV structure in the ordinance. So we are in a condition of an exempt application under EV standards.
Oh, okay.
And as they noted, right, the increase of the delta on total parking because of the additional square footage in the building is creating the variance discussion, but it's all for existing parking.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So there was no direct recommendation for additional EVs.
Thanks, Commissioner. And then, just to close the loop, we don't need the parking stall dimension variance, correct?
Right.
Okay,
That ordinance was changed a while ago.
okay. Just trying to keep score here. Finally, this one's a little bit easier. The disturbance of the slopes 25% or greater, I think that's a design waiver as
That's
opposed
a
to a
waiver,
variance?
right.
Right, okay. Just want to, because you said
Not a
variance, just
variance.
want to make sure. I'm excited to do that.
And those would be man-made slopes, right, from original construction, they're not existing native slopes.
Yes, they are man-made in the existing condition.
That's all I had. Sorry.
Anything else? Any questions from the public of this witness? Yes, please. Yep. Yeah, well, no, either one.
Hi, Walter Shansky. I'm at 17 Exeter Lane. I live off the 17th hole. Currently, our property backs up against runoff from the 17th hole. We're about 15 feet from the runoff. The slope of the runoff has increased to about 6 feet now. I'm losing my backyard, so I'm wondering if there's any consideration for that as part of this program.
I just want to make sure I understand. You're somewhere in this vicinity here on Exeter?
I'm at the end of Exeter, yeah.
Okay. I believe this property is more than, I believe it's more than 2,000 feet away from where the proposed improvements are. So my professional opinion that what is being done here is not going to have any detrimental impact of any type of additional stormwater runoff from the property, and is not going to create or exacerbate any other existing condition that's on Exeter.
So that would be an issue to bring up with the township, I guess, if you have an issue with the effect of their property on yours. It's not subject to this application.
Okay.
It's clearly out of bounds.
So under a different venue.
Oh, yeah, right. It would be, yeah.
Thank you.
And sir, real quick, I'm sorry. Your last name, please, one more time.
Olshansky,
You spell that for me?
Olshanski.
Okay. Also, you did give a little bit of testimony there. You're making some statements, so if you wouldn't just mind, I just got to swear you in. Do you swear affirm the testimony you provided to me? Continue to provide tonight is the truth, was the truth, and will continue to be the truth. So help you God.
Yes.
Okay, I think we understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the public? Okay, seeing none. Do you want to move on to the?
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Mr. Byron.
Our project architect, Mr. Chairman and members, we'll bring up now, Mr. Ian Buckley.
Thank you.
Ian, you were sworn in. If you could just, for the record, state your name, spell your last name, and provide a business address.
My name is Ian Buckley. Last name spelled Buckley.
Excuse me, we can't hear.
I'm sorry.
We've got two conversations going on in the back.
Yeah, could you step outside? Thank you.
Ian, the benefit of your background and credentials, please.
I am a licensed architect in the state of Rhode Island, currently seeking reciprocity in the state of New Jersey right now.
You testified before?
This would be my first time, actually.
Plans prepared by your office under your direction in concert with a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, and that document was certified and sent to the township that was in fact the case. Is that right?
That is correct.
So we're in a limbo right now with Mr. Buckley, where he's awaiting reciprocity for his New Jersey license. He is a licensed architect. He prepared the plans. I had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Warner about this about a week ago.
Okay.
And Steve said they're prepared by him, but someone who's a New Jersey licensed architect. I said, absolutely. We submitted a letter in on behalf of the firm that was in fact the case. So Mr. Buckley is hopeful to walk the board through the architectural plans tonight that he was involved in designing, notwithstanding the fact that he's awaiting his final license.
Okay. Sounds reasonable to me. Yeah. Okay, yes,
Thank
please,
you.
go ahead.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, real quick, business address and his
Oh,
firm.
yes.
I think we got.
Yeah, name of the firm is JBD JGA Design and Architecture. And the address is 700 School Street, Unit 2 in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, 02860.
Thank you.
So you had an opportunity to hear Bob's direct testimony walking the board around the site, and you heard some of the questions from the members of the board involved in the design. If you wouldn't mind, please, and please use the benefit of the rendering as you see fit in your plans. If you could walk the board through the scope of the improvements to the clubhouse and the associated areas, please.
Yeah, so I'm going to walk you through, I think Robert did a really good job, but I'm just going to walk you through some of the program and then maybe comment further on some of the questions that I heard during his testimony.
And for now, Mr. Chairman, members, these are the filed plans you'll be looking at. So we're not going to mark these. These are the same sets that the board has on file already.
Yeah, so I'll go somewhat quickly because I do think Robert covered on it pretty completely. We are doing a small addition to the clubhouse. That addition is in this area over here. It encompasses a indoor/outdoor bar. The major part of this addition is really the expansion of the lower terraces. I think it was explained, pretty completely earlier. We are taking away the temporary awning structure and putting a covered roof, a more temporary structure over that, and then expanding the terrace out from there. On the interior of the building, we are doing a fairly substantial renovation to the inside of the structure, including their grill room. This was a lounge. It's becoming part of their bar now as well. And then a complete renovation of both their locker rooms and their kitchen on the lower level too, as well as the restrooms that are associated with each of those locker rooms.
Can you speak into the microphone so we can capture you? Thank you.
Could you just highlight the actual addition, the
I think
new?
I can, yes. Yeah, so the actual
Okay,
addition is that space there.
and the rest of it is basically expansion of what was the terrace and things that were there.
Yeah, the rest is an expansion from the building, but none of it is enclosed with exterior walls.
Right.
So it wouldn't technically be considered an addition. This covered terrace, I think, as you had mentioned, really is taking the place of the temporary awning structure that is there currently. And then this lower terrace is expanding out from that, the edge of which is approximately in line with where their existing, stone block wall is.
I'm sorry, I still didn't quite follow. So where is the addition? It's to the right of the diagram, the upper right?
It's this rectangle right here. You can see that?
Is the top of the sheet the west
Yes.
direction? That might
Correct.
have to orient everybody, correct?
Yes.
Yep. The top of the sheet is the west west side of the building.
Okay, what's the approximate size of that?
The approximate size of the addition is about 1,300 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
Touching
I'm sorry,
on-
that's plus the terrace.
The 1,300 is just the addition that is enclosed by exterior walls.
Correct, okay.
Yep. Expanding on some of the questions that were brought up, we are improving circulation. As Robert had mentioned, on the north side of our plans here, we are creating or building an ADA ramp to code to gain access to that lower terrace. We are also expanding the egress site stairs that they have on the south side of the elevation. Those site stairs exist now currently, but we're widening them to help increase for egress. They also have, adjacent to those, a exterior metal pan stair that is existing, but in, I wouldn't say disrepair, but we are rebuilding that, so it will be a new structure. And then up on the main level, the improvements on the main level are really just following the improvements on the lower level. We are expanding their decks up on the main level, and those are expanding out in the same distance as the structure below. Let me see. So I'm going to highlight just some areas now. So that area there, that is a completely new deck. And then this area as well is an expansion to the deck. Below that is what they have existing. Again, here, this is the metal pan stair that we are rebuilding to make it a new condition and help with their egress off of these decks as well as rebuilding this stair on the opposite side of the deck, again, to help with egress off of that deck platform. I did want to comment on one thing back on the lower level too. Drainage was talked about, and I think one thing that we didn't mention, we're capturing most of the water in the stormwater management system that we've designed. And we talked about whatever's not captured in there would drain down towards the pond. We have designed a slot drain along the entire perimeter of the terrace. So in my opinion, we'd be catching, a good amount of the water that is falling on these new hardscapes. The other thing that was mentioned was some sustainability measures. We haven't considered any heavy-handed measures like solar up on the roof, but we have done some simpler solutions. We're incorporating low flush plumbing fixtures throughout the building, so that will save on the overall water consumption by a significant amount over the long term of the structure. The club is also going through an energy program to update their mechanical systems to make them more efficient, which again will really help over the long term. They are also upgrading all of their windows and doors throughout the building, even in areas that are not directly affected by this project. The building was built in the 90s, and those windows and doors, 90s or 80s? 90s. The building was built in the 90s, so the windows and doors are from that era. Upgrading the windows and doors will improve the glass, improve the insulation, improve the UV protection. Making it so that those mechanical systems don't have to work as hard to heat and cool the space. So I think those are all solutions that would fall under the sustainable effort. The last exhibit that I will show you is just a rendering looking from, I'm sorry if you could help me, looking from the street. This would be
northwest viewing southeast.
Yeah.
So rendering northwest looking southeast, we'll mark this as A3. It's a colored rendering.
What's that, today's date?
But today's date, yes. Okay, thank you.
Yes, this is a rendering really looking at, well, it's the rear of the building, but if you're on the course, it's the front of the building, and it encompasses the majority of the work that we're doing, especially on the exterior of the building. If you can follow my cursor, you're kind of here seeing the lower terrace with its retaining wall, some of the fire pits that we're showing on the exterior wall of that, glass railings running along the edge, the upper terrace here with wood stained columns, the indoor-outdoor bar, the upper deck areas, metal roof over above that. We're also doing some improvements to the exterior, adding some additional trim and rehabbing the Tudor nature of the existing building that was there. And with that, I really close my testimony and would open it up to questions.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I'm just going to say the building looks beautiful.
Thank you. That's the
I
goal.
agree.
Yeah.
Mr. Cohen?
I have a couple of basic questions again about the expansion of the footprint of the building. So the new lower terrace extends forward over the slope, so that if you go back to the last slide that you had up, if I look at the columns that support the upper terrace, do those columns approximately are they approximately at the extent of the current lower terrace?
Yeah, I would say that is correct. If you're familiar with the site, this line of columns here are approximately at the edge of the existing retaining wall that they have on site currently.
It's been extended north and south a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would say
but
that's correct.
Yeah, in the center, it's about where that center portion is of the existing terrace.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you take one of the columns at the center and you move toward the border, sorry, I'm having trouble expressing myself, toward the edge of the new lower terrace, how far would that
I think that's
go? How wide is the new lower terrace?
Yeah, I understand the question. So approximately this distance, I think is approximately 12 feet.
Okay. We're trying to reconcile the idea that the current wall is 5 feet, but the new wall needs to be almost 9 feet. And the slope is 25%, so there's an increase in the height of the wall of 4 feet.
I think we anticipate this exterior wall, the first wall that you're seeing here, to be around 8 feet.
Okay, so 3 feet, and the slope is 25%, so that sounds about right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Anything from our professionals? No? Any questions from the public for this witness?
I'm sorry, could I ask a question just to
Yeah.
get on the environmental commission? One thing, is there any lighting proposed?
Oh, thank you.
There is some lighting proposed on the exterior of the building. There's no uplighting. The lighting that is proposed on the exterior of the building is sconces on the columns. It would be a warm light, not a lot of lumens. Really don't see it having too much of an impact. There's also some low, just pin lights low on the retaining wall to illuminate, kind of wash the wall downwards. There's also lights up underneath the ceilings of the deck and terrace areas. Again, just directing that down onto the dining spaces. There's no, large scale floodlights or anything of that nature.
Would you say all the lighting is going to be dark sky compliant?
I cannot say that, but understanding the nature of what dark sky looks for, I do think these lights would fall into it, but they are not classified as that.
Would you stipulate to it that it will be?
We would.
One other thing from the Environmental Commission that they wanted to address was I guess there were three, I should have asked your engineer, I apologize. There were three possibly invasive plant species that were proposed. They just wanted you to swap those out with non-invasive native species that aren't on the do not plant list. Did you guys stipulate to that?
They did already, I believe.
Did they?
Yeah.
Yes, we do. So there was a response letter prepared
Yes.
by our office
Oh, that
and we
was
submitted,
submitted. Okay.
and,
Yes.
and those comments were
Okay,
addressed.
my apologies.
Yep.
I didn't realize this stuff was addressed. Okay, so that's already taken care of. You guys are providing more than what you need to with the tree replacement. We got the dark sky, so that's good. Okay.
Yeah, to comment on that, we will definitely, we can reselect if that's yeah, no issues on that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Anything else? Okay, if you move on to your, I guess you have the, oh,
Public questioning of this witness, Mr. Chairman?
I asked for public questioning, and there was none. But, no, no, that's at the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our final witness, Mr. Chairman and members, our project planner, Mr. Paul Ricky.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name's Paul Ricky, R-I-C-C-I. My business address is 177 Monmouth Avenue, Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. Work under Ricky Planning, LLC. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I've been licensed since the year 2000. I'm also a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. I'm a planning consultant in, I guess, 6 communities, I guess currently 8 possibly, based on how you define it. I've testified throughout the state. I've been qualified in over 250 towns. I've testified in front of this board a few times and before the Springbrook Country Club and its last project as well.
Yeah, yeah, please proceed. We'll accept
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
qualifications.
I thought the previous witnesses did an excellent job of setting up this application. I think it's clear that the proposal is modest at best here. And associated with that, the variances that we are seeking, I'm just reiterating them again for the record. The parking variance is, it appears to be 627 spaces are required, where 264 are existing. And that proposed 1,300 square foot addition is what's exacerbating that condition. To permit a retaining wall with a maximum height of 8.6 feet, that wall does vary, where 4 feet is permitted between the street line and the closest point of the principal building. And I'll provide some testimony of the setbacks to the nearest roads. But because Springbrook Road and Mount Campbell Avenue are technically, this is considered the front yard on those roads, that's what's creating that variance. And I believe Ms. Laney said it's a design waiver associated with the steep slope disturbance. Approximately 0.16 acres or 7,233 square feet in slopes that are 25% or greater are proposed to be disturbed. And I know that the board engineer commented this, and I will reaffirm that these aren't virgin lands. These are already disturbed areas that were created as part of the development of the country club. Quickly, the property is in your OSGU zone. There are no specific lot size, lot depth, or setback requirements for the zone. And in the schedule, it says that essentially gives the planning board, it says, I'll just read it. Because of the wide diversity and nature of uses permitted in the zone, no specific area, bulk, and yard requirements are provided. The planning board, in reviewing any site plan for uses proposed in this zone, shall use generally accepted planning standards to minimize the impact on surrounding development, to ensure adequate circulation protection, ecological, environmental elements, and shall approve only those plans designed to carry out the general intent of this zone. From my perspective as a planner, I saw this project as a general reinvestment into an existing long-standing country club in town, and one that would not result in a dramatic alteration to the character of the area. As a result of it, I saw this as the club making a reinvestment to retain its vibrancy. Regarding the retaining wall, you heard from Mr. Cowley that this site is in excess of 160 acres. The clubhouse, particularly in the area where the retaining wall is proposed, is well removed from property lines. Just quickly in Google Earth, I estimated the distance. And the proposed wall is approximately, or at least 750 feet from Springbrook Road and approximately 1,250 feet from Mount Kimball Road. And again, because the OSGU zone has no standards, this is an underlying standard that's in the zone that's been applied here. It's my opinion as a planner that in this area of the site that's so well removed from roadways is generally part of the building envelope, and you would expect building heights in this area of the site to be 35 feet or greater. So while we are seeking this variance, it's appropriately located the location of this 8.6-foot wall. And you saw on the plans, and you can see partially on the architectural elevations currently shown on the screen right now, that substantial vegetation is proposed in front of that wall. I think the site engineer said 170 or so plantings, and there's additional perennials and other landscaping as well that will help soften any impact if anyone can really see that wall from that far away from the roadway. So we believe that despite the variance, it results in sound land use planning. Regarding the steep slopes, again, this is a man-made condition associated with the construction of the golf course. For that reason, it's my planning opinion that we will not be impacting critical resources, which the ordinance was designed to protect, and that the disturbance of these slopes that were man-made associated with this development is reasonable in this context. You heard from the site engineer that these areas that are being disturbed are designed to limit soil loss, erosion, and stormwater runoff through the dry well. Again, I mentioned the landscaping, so there's no reason to anticipate any negative impact associated with it. The off-street parking is triggered again by that 1,300 plus or minus square foot addition. You heard previous testimony that membership is not designed to be changed. This is really just an amenity area within the club, the bar, indoor, outdoor bar area. So I think the one board member hit the nail on the head. There's no reason to anticipate additional need for parking as a result of this change. So we are respectfully requesting that variance for that reason alone. And again, because membership is not being changed as a result of this, there will be no substantial negative impact. And then quickly, your master plan objectives, this advances at least one: preservation and enhancement of historic sites and recreational facilities for public enjoyment, which was specifically stated in your master plan. So for these reasons, this application meets several purposes of the municipal land use law. Advancing your master plan promotes the general welfare, purpose A. I believe it provides sufficient space for recreational uses in order to meet the New Jersey citizens. That's purpose G. And I also believe this is purpose M would be advanced, which results in the efficient use of land, accordingly meeting the positive criteria. Regarding the negative criteria, I believe the variance can be granted without a substantial detriment to the public good in your zone plan. Again, these are small changes to a long-standing private country club on an oversized lot. Just to put it in perspective, in the zone plan, in your B11 zone, you have lot widths of industrial properties is now 75 feet. In your I-21 zone, 125 feet. In the B11, a side yard setback of 10 feet and the like. So significantly more intensive development is anticipated in your zone plan, much closer to residential properties. And again, it's my opinion that the reinvestment in this club facility would benefit the public rather than be a detriment from it. And for these reasons, I believe this project results in sound land use planning, and it's an excellent application for variance relief.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Lesso.
Yeah, I have a question. I guess it's really not so much for Mr. Rigi, but really maybe for some planning board members that have been here in the past, or maybe for our planner. First question is do you agree with everything Mr. Ricci said about why the variances should be granted?
Well, I think what is critical, actually, which is what he stated, which is you've had this deficiency of parking for a long time. And so what they're proposing now, they're representing, they're not expanding their membership. They're not going to be accommodating more cars. So I think that actually, yes, that's a very good rationale for why that parking variance should be granted.
So the question I guess I'm wrestling with is, it sounds like there's almost a 370 space difference between, and I understand that they've added 1,500 square feet, it kicks in another 3 spaces. But the question is we've granted this variance over the years. Why? Is the rule just kind of silly? It's a country club. They're not going to have more than 300 people there, so they don't need more than 300 spaces. Why is there 570? I guess I'm asking that opinion. I don't know. Linda's been here probably the longest.
I've probably been here longer than anybody. I don't recall ever seeing significant parking issues. I live very close to Springbrook and have neighbors who are members. But I know you have events from time to time, but even with that, we're not seeing a lot of overflow parking issues. So, and when the members come, they play, and they may hang around for a while and then they go. So there's a lot of turnover with that.
What's inherent in the calculation that creates it to be so high?
It's X number of spaces per 100 square feet. That's.
So like the locker room is part of that square feet?
Yeah, everything is part, yeah, so it's like it's almost like the calculation doesn't really apply, if you think
Well,
about
that's what I'm wrestling with, is like 570 spaces,
Yeah.
like that 286 wide.
So you get the women's and the men's locker room and, yada, 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 that doesn't count into the amount of traffic or parking that you're gonna have in and out of that site.
Thank you, just better now.
But it's-
Very quickly, anecdotally, Mr. Les, so I see this all the time with one of my medical clients, represent National Dialysis Clinic, and most codes don't anticipate that use, right? Most codes have, well, doctor's office generate this demand, or a hospital that demand. Our clinics have like 10 patients that'll come in day over day, and it's almost like chemotherapy treatment. They can't drive when they leave, they're exhausted, right? So they're getting rides home. So we have 10 to 15 patients in here. We need about 10 or 12 parking spaces between employees and the patients that maybe try to drive. You go to any given town in New Jersey, the local code, when you do the math, we need 100 spaces somehow. We have to explain, we really need maybe a dozen, but now you need 100. Well, we don't. The code says we do, but there's a disconnect between the metrics sometimes. I think Mr. Ricci hit it as well when he said, the zone doesn't really contemplate a lot of bulk standards because it's such a varied zone in the OSGU and there are a lot of large properties. So we fall into that little nuanced category here of no man's land, of a use that generates this requirement, but we don't have it. Well, why don't you have it? Well, we really don't need it. So there's a disconnect, and that's, you landed on it very well with your thought.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just in general not a big fan of parking standards, parking minimums, except because I think that the businesses and owners would have a pretty good idea what they need to function. The problem comes when there is overflow parking and it affects, the areas around it, and that can be a real issue. That's not really the case here. I mean, they're not, overflow parking is on the, just as Murphy says, it doesn't really happen. So, and the existing neighborhoods and streets are so far away that it isn't an effect. So I have no problems with the fact that this is carried on, and in this case is entirely justified.
Yeah, I just wanted to get my arms around it.
It's
When you hear a 570 and
Right.
we got 260, and somebody will say, how'd you vote for that?
Mr. Aligned, if we needed more parking for our membership, we'd be running in here asking for more parking field spaces.
Right.
We'd be the first one in here saying, we need it, please. Give us the coverage variance, give us whatever relief we need. So the interests are very much aligned in that respect between the applicant and the township.
I think also this is there are several country clubs I can think of right off the top of my head have this same situation.
Yes.
Not a lot of parking because there's limited membership. And again, like if there's a wedding or whatever, they work all that out ahead of time. But yeah, no, pretty much they're not big parking lots. They have enough for their.
Same problem, Morris County Golf. the number of
Yeah,
weddings
right,
are wild.
exactly.
Yep.
Country clubs, resorts, right? So you'll see this up if any of you are familiar with up in Hardiston, Crystal Springs Resorts, right? That's a scenario where you have some competing interests of those uses compiling on top of each other. So we have the standards are closer to being met in need at times, whereas something like this, when we have programming for the course, the use of the facility for its members, and then you have an event, that event is being offset by the membership acknowledging that they're giving their course up for the day. They're giving their club up for a certain amount of time. So it's an operational need, really. And it's controlled, like you said, any overflow is on site in areas that only affect them.
Right.
I mean, it's also, sorry, just to my 2 cents. Also, parking standards tend to park for the worst case scenario, which is, like Christmas Eve or something, like at a shopping center. And it's usually way more than you need on a regular basis, which there are reasons for it, but it usually doesn't make sense on a day-to-day.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
Nope.
Anything else from the board professionals? Any questions from the public of this witness? Okay, seeing none. Do you kind of want to summarize where we are here, Chris?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Real quick though, any comments?
Or unless you want to have anything else to say?
Very brief. I want to thank the board again for your time tonight, as always, getting us on the agenda. Thank you very much, Sonia, for that, and then the staff review leading up to this. We very much appreciate it. No, very simple, straightforward application, Mr. Chair. Members, you asked perfect questions. I know the board understands this project very well. The one thing I will say is if the board were to act favorably on this application, thematic with the applicant's goal of betterment for this property is they're ready to file for building permits. So we don't want to be presumptuous and just dump them in the building department without advising this board, but the applicant would like to at least submit for building permits ahead of resolution adoption, realizing they wouldn't issue from the building department until the resolution's in place. But again, we don't want to assume that the board would know that or think that. So just another request tonight that the board essentially be amenable to our request to do that. The building department will do what they will with the permit documents if and when they're ready, if this board acted favorably. But beyond that, Mr. Chair and members, just want to thank you folks again for your time, and it's nice to see everybody tonight.
The applicant would be proceeding at its own risk if it were to apply for permits prior to resolution adoption in the event there's an appeal of some sort.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, understood. I see it fairly often, Mr. Chairman.
We've done that a couple times.
Yeah.
Okay. I was trying to ask for, any members of the public have comments?
Yes, right.
Nope. Okay. All right, no members of the public with comments. Okay, so as I understand it, this is the relief being sought. The applicant is requesting amended preliminary and final major site plan approval. Two bulk variances, one for the total number of off-street parking stalls. They're required with this addition to provide 627 parking stalls. They're proposing an existing addition of 264. Next variance is for retaining wall height. 4 feet is the maximum permitted. I heard two different numbers tonight, 8.9 and 8.6. Which one are you guys requesting? 8.9?
8.9.
8.9, okay.
Thank you.
Gotcha. Proposing 8.9. The one design waiver for the disturbance of slopes 25% or greater. Any disturbance of those slopes is prohibited. They're proposing to disturb 5.07% or 7,233 square feet. As far as conditions go, I think everything in the TCC report was satisfied. That was to provide a steep slope disturbance analysis and a tree removal and replacement analysis. The only other condition I noted would be that any proposed exterior lighting would be dark sky compliant. And bear with me one moment. Let me just double check. And then the only other caveat would be that the applicant would be permitted to file for permits prior to resolution approval at its own risk. And that's it.
Okay. Do we have
I move that we approve the application.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comment, discussion for the vote? Could you call the roll?
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Anwar.
Yes.
Mr. Flowers.
Yes.
Mr. Rabbit.
Yes, and good luck.
Ms. Murphy.
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Benoit,
Yes.
Mr. Quillen,
Yes.
Ms. Correia,
Yes.
Mr. Bott.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.
Yeah, no, they've got it.
Smoke detectors. We don't. it's
We're
keeping
waiting
me
for
up,
it
so
to
you
go
know,
off, where it
it's
doesn't
important to
go
have
off.
yeah,
right, yeah, that's not just the
It's
chirp,
gonna be
right?
insurance.
I think it's the carbon
Holy
monoxide.
crap.
Oh, yeah.
The rest of them are hardwired into the
Oh,
house.
okay. I thought it was like my hearing aid on the fritz or something.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm gonna be hearing that in my sleep.
so a couple other matters before we adjourn here.
No, you're good.
One is, we talked about this in the last meeting with the resolution authorizing a study as to whether property is in need of redevelopment. I think we have that resolution before us, was pointed out. Chris, you want to bring us up to speed on that?
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Chairman. So I think you guys are probably familiar with this general process. I know Morris Township has a number of these redevelopment areas. This is concerning property block 1901, lots 1 and 1.01. I guess the Township Committee wants you guys to appoint Liz to conduct a study of this particular property to decide whether or not it's an area that should be designated as a non-condemnation redevelopment area. I would think Liz could probably give you some more specifics on that. I'm not too familiar with the ins and outs of the particular property, but I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Liz. But no, I just mentioned, this is, procedurally speaking, you guys would direct her office to conduct this study. Then, depending on the results of the study, at which point the board would have to pull the public hearing to, make the determination whether or not it should be an area, a non-condemnation area in need of redevelopment, if I'm pronouncing it the right way. And then the Township Committee has to then vote on it as well. So that's kind of the 30,000 foot view of the process.
Right. So what's our projected timeline for this now?
I very soon.
Yeah, yes, I know.
Really
That's why, yeah, I wanted to impress on.
I think
Yes.
it's due, a week from this Friday. So, I have to get it done. So I believe then it would come to this board, right? And
But it has to be noticed. 'Cause
it has
it's a
to be
public hearing, it has
noticed
to be
with the
noticed.
map, and then present, assuming that this board, or that my report and this board agrees and recommends it to be an area in need of redevelopment, then you make that recommendation to the governing body.
So we are looking for this, to have the report and to vote on it.
June the 2nd, I believe, right?
I
Is that
think,
the June
yes, that's
2nd is the
right,
date?
yeah.
Okay,
June the 2nd.
Yeah.
okay. So just remember
That's
that, folks.
fast.
Okay.
So do we have to vote on this or?
Yes,
What you're voting on is authorizing.
authorizing them to
All right,
do the
let's
study.
do
To do
it
the
then.
study.
I thought we already did this. But
No, we didn't have the resolution in hand. Right, so we're just crossing the Ts and dotting the Is. So can I
I'll
have
make a motion for that.
Yes, Mr.
I'll
Lewis.
make a motion that we approve the resolution to authorize our planner to take on this study.
Second.
That's the resolution, so I guess that's a roll call.
Mr. Alesso.
Yes.
Ms. Van Orn.
Yes.
Mr. Flowers.
Yes.
Mr. Rabbit.
Yes.
Ms. Murphy.
yes.
Mr. Benoit.
Yes.
Mr. Quillen.
Yes.
Mr. Correia.
Yes.
Mr. Bott.
Yes.
So moved.
Anything from the legislative committee?
No, we're working on some things, but not yet. Not
Okay.
ready to bring forward.
And then
We tell you
the-
we have to kill you.
Okay, and then the last item on other matters is the Board of Adjustment annual report for 2024. That was in the package. I think you saw that. Any comments on that? My only question for them, and I'll ask you, Mr. Benoit, and so is that, it's a pretty straightforward listing of what was done. Sometimes might see recommendations or things you might like to see the planning board address in the master plan or push it or suggest to the governing body on changes to ordinances or zoning or something.
And we did talk about that
Okay.
and several times, and the board didn't have any such recommendations.
So,
I do have one question. Why do you still have a pending application from 2020? Singular.
Yeah, that's still on, because they were supposed to submit information and they have not submitted that.
Is this a cellular tower or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Those are, I think.
okay. So we'll just note that we did
So it's on
receive
perma-hold, huh?
the annual report as required, so.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So don't applications get rejected if additional information is?
Yeah, I would think you would
is
get rid of it
requested
off
and
your
never
agenda if they're
submitted?
not responsive.
This board has to recommend that they be dismissed.
There you have your action item.
I like that.
They would be able to just refile. So
Right.
we just continuously deem them incomplete, doesn't, the clock doesn't start ticking until they're deemed complete. So it's-
Okay. We could probably do that.
Okay, I guess,
I make a motion, we adjourn.
just formally, I have to ask for public comments. No? Okay, now, Joe,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned.